So the way that I think about sobriety, right, and we've all heard this probably more than 1,000 times, but you stay sober one day at a time, right?
Right.
If we expand our vision and we kind of take in this whole macro idea of like your life cycle and what it means to be addicted and go through sobriety, that whole process can feel overwhelming. So what we're going to try and set up today is sort of a checklist, some kind of a structure that gives you guys something to reference on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, and a quarterly basis. I feel like check-ins are a good way to keep us all on track, right? A whole bunch of people mentioned getting a sponsor, right? You want to have somebody once you're done with treatment that you can call when you're feeling cravings or when your mental health isn't as tip-top as you want it to be. You want to have somebody you can check in with, right? A couple people also mentioned trying to do sobriety on your own, white-knuckling it. It just doesn't work, right? You're going to benefit from community. You're going to benefit from having people around you that have similar experiences, or even if they don't have similar experiences, they understand what you're going through and they want to support you as you navigate this process. So this structure is just a way of tripling and quadrupling down on checking in with yourself, checking in with the people around you, checking in with your sponsors, etc., etc. That makes sense so far?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So, first one is a daily practice. So for you guys who are familiar with the hero's journey that we've talked about the last couple weeks, we set this up with 4 pillars, right? And they kind of support everything else that happens. So you have your physical, your psychological, your emotional, and your spiritual selves, okay? We want to think about those in lots of different ways, but one way that we did talk about them was like archetypes, right? Kind of like these standards that have existed for a long, long time. They kind of give us some idea about how to develop character, or how to be a good person, or how to be the best version of yourself, right? There's lots of different ways to phrase it. So with this daily practice, what I'm going to encourage you guys to do is to daily kind of get in touch with each of those 4 areas. So again, you have your physical, your psychological, your emotional, and your spiritual. What's one way you guys can get in touch with your physical selves on a daily basis?
Working out.
Yeah, working out. What's another one?
Meditation.
Yeah, it could be meditation, sure.
Something like showering.
Yeah, exactly. Even just like self-care, right?
Bible study.
Bible study, could be, but that's more like a group, right? So think about like your physical body.
Eating right.
Bible reading.
Yeah, eating right, could be Bible reading. You're on the Bible, I love that, okay. So again, like there's no wrong way to do this, right? But one way that I think about doing it is training. Okay? So again, often we think about like working out, could be running, could be yoga, right? Anything that gets you in touch with your physical self. How about psychological? What's one way we can get in touch with our psychological selves on a daily basis?
Therapy.
Could be therapy for sure. Journaling, I like that.
Meditation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Self-evaluation.
Yeah, some self-assessment for sure. Anything else?
Maybe like affirmation.
Yeah, good. So I'm going to put meditate, but what I'm saying here is that you give yourself some time to focus on one thing. So any of the things that were just mentioned can fit in that. If you have some kind of religious tradition, if you want to read the Bible, it's a great time to do that. If you just want to sit still by yourself, do some visualization with your eyes closed, that works great too. If you want to spend time with a counselor, talking stuff out, moving that stuff around, getting the stuff in your head a little bit more clear, that's a great idea. How about emotional? How do we get in touch with our emotional selves?
Therapy.
Yeah, again, therapy could be.
Journal.
Journaling does work for everything, yes. Okay, so what I think of with emotions is like, that's what connects us to each other, right? That's what allows us to communicate with each other. That's what establishes relationships, right? So it could be either communication or connection. right? And again, we need to really focus on the point that none of us are going to do this alone and be successful, right? Even if it's just you going back to your family, your family's going to have to be on board with supporting your sobriety. But even beyond that, it would be great to have like a home group. It would be great to have a sponsor. It would be great to have some buddies around that you can do some hobbies with who are kind of all on the same track. Okay, what about our spiritual selves? What's a way to get in touch with spiritual selves? And don't do the obvious, right? The obvious is like go to church and read the Bible. Valid, not wrong, but think deeper about it. What's a way that you can get in touch with your spiritual self that might be different than those obvious answers?
Out in nature.
Say again?
Go out in nature.
Yeah, absolutely. Like give yourself some way to experience awe. I like that.
Think of it as like doing a gratitude list or something like that.
Absolutely. What else? Okay, we'll work on that one. So one thing that I think about is service, right? So one aspect of recovery that I don't think gets talked about enough is how we're gonna use the lessons that we learn in recovery to make other people's lives better, right? Recovery and treatment should be a very selfish process. You should be trying to get your shit together here, for sure. But it should also be a process of figuring out how to kind of squash your ego a little bit, right? How to create some humility in your life, right? How to understand that there are people who are going through similar struggles and you might have an opportunity to help them with the knowledge and the experience that you've had going through treatment yourself, right? And this trips people up sometimes, because what does service mean?
Give back.
To give back, for sure. What else?
Help others.
To help others. Oh, so close. Go ahead, sir.
What I've noticed is that the more I work on myself, the more that service comes out naturally. You know what I mean? The more you start to understand yourself, the more people gravitate towards you because they see that, okay, this guy got what I want. And without knowing it, I'm giving back just because I'm doing the things that are good for me.
Yeah.
Is helping other people.
Exactly. Maybe some of us have heard the phrase like you can't pour from an empty cup, right? You really got to kind of have your own shit together, kind of have some idea about how to organize your life. And even in doing that, right, it does make it easier for people, right? Imagine your family navigating or interacting with you as an addict versus interacting with you as a sober person, right? There's going to be some changes there that are super important, right? So again, just very basically, figuring your shit out is going to be service to the people who are closer to you.
Yeah.
Willingness?
Say it again.
Willingness?
Willingness, say more.
I mean, like, I was thinking about what you were saying, it's like, you have more will to want to do things out of
give back.
your heart.
Yeah.
Instead of, like, feeling like you're forced to do something. I mean, you think about service in the military too, it's like, that's a willingness of your own to want to serve your country.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or get out and volunteer,
Mm-hmm.
panels that come in and stuff like that as well.
Absolutely.
You know, it's a willingness for them to, it's not like they're being forced to be here, forced to serve.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Cool. Anything else here? So if I had to pick one of these, right, as a daily practice, right, again, it would be awesome if you could hit all four every day. Life doesn't happen like that. But if I had to pick one, I'd choose meditation, right?
Yeah.
If we kind of get things right in our head, if we kind of organize how we're thinking about ourselves and how we're thinking about the world, it will provide opportunities, right, to kind of connect with these other ones. Okay, so a daily practice, journaling, right, sitting by yourself and just running through what's going on in your head can be super valuable in the recovery process.
Yeah, I'm doing a presentation on meditation actually, and like one of them is mantra.
Yeah.
To repeating, or like, or humming, or like repeating a phrase
Mhm.
over and over, so it
Mhm.
sticks. And there's almost like self-programming
Mm-hmm, absolutely. Cool. Do you have your mantra, Ron? Ron, do
You have
you,
your mantra?
do you have a mantra?
Patience, just removing the obsession,
Okay.
like that.
Mm-hmm.
Just, that's my biggest, challenge is
Yeah.
just wish her to go away.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody else have any other daily practices that they're working on right now?
Freddie does.
Go ahead, Fred.
It comes down to self-evaluation. Meditation is a lot of trying to figure out yourself and how you can fix what's within and your outer
Mhm.
your outer self. But me, I am very spiritual, and I've been learning that the brain is the devil's playground. You know what I mean? And if he's gonna get you, he's gonna get you here first.
Mm.
So thoughts of lust or wrongdoing or sin that come in my head, I tell myself, I have no control over this. Go talk to God, because that's him trying to tempt me, and I'm just, everything's already in God's hands, so I just been throwing him God's way. So that's my everyday, and once again, that's meditation, because, you know, I'm balancing all that within, you know what I mean, so.
And how's that working for you? How you feel like that's going?
Glorious,
Nice.
because it takes my mind off of the lust or the sin, and it puts me back on God. You know what I mean? So it's replacing the wrong with the right, and it gets me. And even just saying that right there is just a prayer that I just, you know what I mean? Hey God, this guy's bugging me again. You know what I mean? It's put me right back on track where I need to be mentally. So.
Excellent. Thanks for that. Anything else on daily practice before we move on? Again, you don't have to do it the way that I do it. You don't have to do it the way anybody else does it, but you need to figure out how you do it, right? This is essential. If you don't have some kind of daily thing that you get to touch with all of those 4 aspects, recovery is just going to be harder. Life in general is just going to be harder, right? This is just a good way to set up your day. Okay, moving on to weekly check-ins. So definitely if you get into a group where you have a sponsor, this will be part of your life for eternity, right? And there's nothing wrong with that. So some things that I think about on a weekly basis, right? Setting up a schedule. Doing things like meal prepping. And then any kind of homework. Oh my goodness. Why is a schedule valuable?
Track your progress.
Track your progress, sure.
Keep you on track.
Yeah, lets you kind of know where you're pointed.
For routine.
Routine, yes.
I want to say routine.
Routine.
It's, I mean, for me specifically, like, if I have copious amounts of downtime, it causes me to do stupid things.
Well, that's what I say, like, it's detrimental to have, I don't come into those figures.
Indeed.
And when you routine schedule, it becomes like a goal, especially if you're in recovery. Well, I wanna do this right, I wanna do that right,
Mhm.
I wanna go to my meeting, I wanna sponsor.
Mhm.
Keep that in your head like it's a goal, instead of saying, well, I want a lot of money and this and that. You say, well, I was out there using drugs and drinking every night, so my goal is, and my daily goal is, I wanna be my sponsor, I wanna go to my meetings, I wanna read the big books and stuff, things like that.
Mhm.
That right there, because about that's what got us in here, is because we didn't have them daily goals when we was out there.
Yeah,
Exactly.
thanks, Ron. Go ahead, sir.
It creates habits,
Mhm.
good habits.
Mhm.
You know, we relied so much on our habits with our addiction, with like having a schedule, having set times to do things. It fills in those low ends, and we can just like start to form around them, I guess.
I think scheduling, or checking in general keeps you, accountable,
Accountable.
keeps you accountable, you know, that, in your face every week.
Mm-hmm. I think that's huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen.
I mentioned discipline because so much of our addiction, we didn't have any discipline. We just relied on these substances to give us dopamine all the time, and that was what we thought life was, and we forgot about discipline.
Yeah, that's a good one. Thanks, Keegan. Go ahead.
It prevents you from becoming like complacent, apathetic, and eliminates procrastination.
Go ahead, Mike.
Me, kind of, that's what I've done, but schedule things, with meal prep or something, you can figure it all out, go to the store one time and you're done.
Yeah,
It's like the time saver too.
yeah,
You don't have to go to the store every 3 days of the week or whatever.
right, right. Go ahead, Sam.
It's almost like, so if you set a schedule and you complete your schedule, it's almost like completing a goal.
Yeah,
Makes you feel good.
like a little bit of accomplishment.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. Awesome. Yeah, you guys are right on track. I'm gonna throw a little stuff in here just to mess with us a little bit so we can think about it, right? A lot of people mentioned routine. A lot of people mentioned habits. I think there's value to both of those, right? There's another side of that that can maybe get a little bit pathological or negative, right? Where we start to find ourselves stuck in a rut. So how do we balance having some things that provide structure and give us an idea of like where we're headed, the trajectory that we're going on? How do we balance that to avoid getting stuck in a rut or just repeating habits because we repeat habits?
Healthy hobbies.
Healthy hobbies. Say more.
I think it has a lot to do with connecting back to your inner child, like things that you liked when you were a kid before you started using drugs and alcohol. Try to, again, like meditate on that and like remember what you enjoyed doing as a kid, and then look at it with your adult eyes and try to get back into it and see how you like it still.
Cool. Great idea.
Yeah, I wanna touch on it, like, when you make your schedule, just, not all work, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Make
for
sure
sure.
you add something in there that's gonna give you peace of mind, that's gonna give you joy, that's gonna bring you happiness. So if you just continue working, that's getting in that rut. And it's gonna leave you, so if you add something in there, like once a week, go play some handball, you know what I mean? Or once a week, hit the gym, just to get that something that you enjoy doing, so that way you don't get in that everyday grind of work, coming home, cleaning the house, just whatever it may be, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
So just add something in there that's gonna bring you joy, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. So another thing we can think about here is like mindfulness, right? Right, where we're putting intention into how we're spending our time, right? And I have down here all the things that everybody said, right? Some playtime, right? Some extra kind of like hobbies or things that don't have anything to do with like making money or achieving status, right? As men, we're conditioned that those two things are kind of like the most popular shit. If you're making good money and you have some status, lots of people will look at all of the bullshit that you have to do and kind of ignore some of it if you have those two things, right? But they can be traps as well, right? You can get stuck in pursuing those and then the rest of life gets shitty. Some other things to think about, we've already mentioned journaling here, right? Having a weekly check-in allows you to kind of be a little bit reflective. If you have a daily journal at the end of the week, you can kind of go back and look at those journal entries and see kind of what your head and your heart have been doing. And again, it gives you an opportunity to forecast kind of like where you want to go next week. For me, weekly check-ins lead back to training goals, right? If I make 3 workouts in a week, that feels like I'm staying on track. Again, I get to give myself like a little gold star or a pat on the back. Another thing, as men, we've been socialized not to really like take accomplishment or give ourselves props when we do good things or when we accomplish stuff. Especially in a recovery program, you got to get your head back into like giving yourself credit for the hard work that you're doing, right? And maybe you get props from other people, and maybe you have high fives from other people, and that's great. But working on that internal dialogue of like, yep, I wrote it down. Yep, I put effort into it. Yep, I accomplished it. High five is a super important part of this process. Anything else on weekly check-ins? Cool. I think discipline is a big thing that I don't have up here. So however you imagine discipline, that would be a great way to kind of set a foundation for your weekly program. All right, for monthly, we're going to talk about forecasting. So the word goals has come up often already today in my practice personally, and in creating this curriculum. I've been trying to move away from goals. And the reason of that is that sometimes when we don't have all of our resources, right, when we're kind of in maybe a fragile position moving through recovery, setting a specific goal can sometimes be overwhelming, right? But it can also be something that we don't yet have the resources to actually accomplish, right? We have these big heady goals of like getting done with recovery, getting back to work and fixing my family and going to church, and all of that stuff is great, right? But if we try to do all of that at one time, we might not be there yet, right? Yeah, so instead of that, we think about forecasting. You guys know what forecasting is?
Like, just trying to predict something?
Yeah, kind of predictive. Instead of like a set point though, we kind of look at the external circumstances and we kind of figure out like, okay, generally speaking, this is the direction that I'm heading, right? So forecasting allows us to just think in terms of like where my energy is going, right? So now, you guys probably all have the goal of completing treatment, getting through this 28-day program. It's a great goal. But do you complete that in one moment? No. How do you complete that?
Step by step.
Day by day, right? Step by step, one bite at a time, right? So that's what forecasting is. Forecasting is every day I wake up and I say, like, where am I headed for the next 24 hours, right? And then I can keep track of that with my weekly check-ins and daily practices. And I can kind of say like, okay, I know for the most part, if I make it through the day going in this direction, things are going to be good, right? And it's not about perfection, and it's not about like hitting the bullseye every time. It's just about starting to structure your life where if you keep going this way, there's going to be a bunch of bullshit. But if I keep heading in this direction, there'll be some good things that happen. So this is where we start to talk about tracking data. Right, so after a month of daily practice and weekly check-in, you have 30 days of information, right? Some of that is going to be super valuable and really useful. Some of it's not going to make sense at all. Some of it's not going to be useful at all. That's okay, that's the balance. But being able to check in at the end of every month and look back at how you've spent the previous 30 days of your life, it can give you an idea about how you want to spend the next 30 days of your life. So there's a bunch of questions that I have written down here. What are you contributing to? How are you participating? What are you building towards? Who are you being influenced by? Okay? So contributing, participating, where's your effort going? Who are you being influenced by? Right? All of those things, if you're mindful and intentional about them, can contribute positively to the recovery experience, to your sobriety, right? And if they're not, if those things are negative when you check in about them, it provides you another opportunity to start pursuing change. If you're thinking about who you're hanging out with and it's still the same group of people that you were hanging out with before treatment, that should be something that you kind of like get a little red flag about, right? Like, you can't hang out with the same people, can't really hang out in the same places. If you try to do that, it's likely that there'll be more challenges to your sobriety, right? Instead of taking a moment to do some self-assessment, to have kind of a mindful or intentional thought process and say, okay, I need to hang out with different people, I need to be in different places, I need to be doing different things to continue to be successful in sobriety. Okay, for me, this really is centered on relationships and communication goals, right? For me, these monthly forecastings are like, how do I integrate myself back into whatever normal society is, right? Whatever normal is for you outside of treatment. How do you get back into that, right? We had a lot of guys on the check-in who were like, I just want to get back to real life, whatever real life is. So how does that go? What is that process like?
I don't think I can quantify everything. I mean, I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
You know, it's just kind of difficult, I guess, to get into that routine of just, you know, that's data tracking.
Yeah.
Go out and buy my Apple Watch and fucking, I don't know, I'm gonna do
Are you asking what my personal, process would be like to
Sure.
get back into normal life?
Sure, please.
So I've been keeping in contact with, my superintendent at work this whole time here. And, they've actually been contacting me, making sure I'm doing all right and whatnot. And I've also been trying to keep up on my bills and stuff. It's been a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
It really has been. It's been stressful. Yeah, I'm just gonna get out there and, I'm gonna make sure I go to a meeting. I'm gonna find a home group. I'm gonna go back to work. I'm just, you know, catch up on my bills and
Yeah. So,
back into normal life.
yeah, for sure. So what I hear you saying is like you're really making an intentional effort here to
Here,
to
yeah.
keep those connections on the outside. So
Yeah.
when you're done, you kind of hop right back into it.
Yeah.
Awesome. Go ahead.
Also, I think a lot of it has to do with like, you know, the work we're doing here, like people are really finding out who they are. I don't think a lot of people know who they are.
Yeah.
Like I've been dealing with that a lot, you know, I mean, like getting, I mean, I'm 31 now, it's just like, you know, I was a completely different person when I was